Welcome back. We are looking into Terraform resources section now. So let's get into that section now in our GitHub repository HashiCorp certified Terraform associate. So in 04 Terraform resources, so the first section we are going to learn now, which is resource syntax and then behavior, which is 0401 resource syntax and then behavior. So as part of step 1, it's an introductory section about what all we are going to learn as part of this entire section. So we are going to understand about the resource syntax, resource behavior in combination with what is Terraform state, and then what are the desired and then current states of Terraform state. All those things we are going to learn as part of this entire section, which is nothing but Terraform resource syntax and then behavior. So let's move on to the step 2, which is nothing but understanding the resource syntax. In Terraform language basics section, we have understood about the resource block and resource type on a very high level. So now we are going to understand a little bit more about those things, and also understand about the resource type, and then also the block labels, how we are going to define inside the resources from a presentation perspective. So let's go to our presentation now, and we are going to look into Terraform resource syntax. So as part of language basics, we have already seen these things, okay? So which is nothing but resource is nothing but a resource type, which is nothing but the block type. So you can have a block with type as resource or variable or outputs. There are different blocks available. So we are dealing with understanding the basic configuration syntax here. So you can have blocks like top level blocks and also the block inside blocks. So top level blocks are nothing but resources, providers, variables, and then outputs. So all those come under top level blocks. So once we understand more about the entire language and then all the sections whatever we have planned to implement, right, so we'll know what all top level blocks are there, and then what all other blocks are there, we'll come to know in a detailed manner once we learn these variables, data sources, state, workspaces, provisioners, functions, modules. So at that point of time, we'll get the complete understanding of the entire blocks available, who are top level blocks and then who are block inside blocks. All those things we'll get a complete idea. On a very high level, you can say resource is a top level block here, and block inside blocks you can consider like EC2 instance tags or provisioners or something else, okay? So that's about from blocks side. And if you see here, after resource you have two labels. One is AWS_instance and then another one is EC2 demo. So those are called block labels. So based on block type, block labels will be of 1 or 2. Example, for variables you will have only one block label, okay, which is nothing but your variable name. In the same way, for resources you will have 2 block labels. So like this, based on your respective block type, which is nothing but resource or variable or outputs or modules, so based on that, your number of block labels will be defined as per your Terraform language, okay? So that's about it. And in each of these respective resources, you will have something called arguments. So arguments are nothing but the resource level attributes, or you can say resource level details, okay? So AWS instance, it will have some information about that AWS instance, my name, instance type, and in which availability zone it need to be created. So all these information about that respective resources. So moving on, this is the next slide which we already seen in the language basics section. So one more time I'm going to show you here, which is nothing but, so these are the argument names and these are the right side ones are called the argument values, okay? So moving on, the next thing here is understand the resource syntax in detail. So the previous 2 slides are just a reference from our Terraform language basics, but here we are going to understand about resource syntax in a detailed manner, right? So if you see, this is a sample example with the provider and then a resource block for a AWS VPC creation, okay? So provider, which we have seen earlier in our provider everything end to end in our provider section, okay? So now we are going to see about the resource and its syntax in a detailed manner, right? So in a resource, we know that this is the resource block and the type is block type is a resource. So now the first thing here, whatever comes the label 1 you call it as, okay? So that is called the resource type. Okay, so it determines the kind of infrastructure object it manages and what arguments and other attributes the resource supports. So this can be a AWS underscore VPC or AWS underscore instance or whatever based on your cloud provider. Whatever the resource name is defined in the documentation of that respective provider, so that is the value you need to put here based on whatever the resource you want to create also. So here I am going to create a AWS VPC. So I am saying AWS underscore VPC. So equivalent documentation for that respective provider also you will have here. Okay, so example, if you take a resource as AWS instance, so then its resource information will be very clear. Okay, so here VPC, and then if it is AWS instance, let's go here. Okay, so AWS underscore instance and then other value here. Okay, so but the first one, whatever the label you define for a resource is the value which is called the resource type. Okay, and it defines the infrastructure object whatever you are planning to create. And the next thing is resource local name. So the second attribute whatever you pass, or second value or second label whatever you pass to this resource block is called the resource local name. So it is used to refer to this resource from elsewhere in the same Terraform module but has no significance outside that module's scope. So when you understand more about modules, so you'll get more picture about this statement, but on a very high level you can consider like it is used to refer to this resource from elsewhere in the same Terraform module. So whatever the value, whatever the configurations you are maintaining so far are comes under the root module. So inside this root module, in the scope of this root module, wherever you want to access, you can access this respective resource using this local name. I set the local name as VPC underscore US hyphen west hyphen 1. So the resource type and name. So the resource type is AWS underscore VPC dot VPC underscore US hyphen west 1. Okay, so this is the unique identifier for a given resource and so must be unique within a module. So once you define this local name like this, for the another VPC if you want to create inside these module inside this root module, so you need to give some other name for your local name for your respective resource. So this name should be unique across your respective module, respective root module or a module wherever you are dealing with. So with that said, you have 10 VPCs you want to create and 10 resources you are creating with this. So this local name should be of different for all the 10 VPCs whatever you are planning to create. So moving on, the next thing is meta argument. So multiple providers. Okay, so you already seen the multiple providers section in our previous lectures. So if you see, provider is equal to AWS hyphen west 1. So this is called the meta argument. Provider, whatever you are defining here, is called the meta argument. So then what are the CIDR block and then tags called? Okay, so CIDR block and then tags are called the arguments of this respective resource AWS VPC. So argument name is CIDR block and argument value is some 10.2. something something something. So but these are called regular arguments, but which are specific to this respective AWS VPC resource type. But what is this meta argument? Okay, so meta argument can be used with any resource whatever you are going to create using Terraform to change the behavior of that resource. Okay, so there will be a set of meta arguments for us. So if you go here and go to Terraform resources, right? So meta argument depends on meta argument count and then meta argument lifecycle and meta argument for each. So these things we are going to learn in a step-by-step manner in our upcoming lectures when we are dealing with this 04 Terraform resources. Okay, so these meta arguments are the things which are required for us to change the behavior of our resource. So in addition to regular arguments which are related to that respective resource type, so we'll also have some meta arguments provided by Terraform, so which will help us in changing the behavior of the resources whatever you are going to use in the Terraform. So that's about meta arguments. And standard, these are the resource arguments, which we are discussed earlier also and now also, which is nothing but will be specific to that respective resource type. So argument values here, whatever you see, CIDR block is equal to this value or name is equal to VPC, whatever these things, right? So these can be an expression or other Terraform dynamic language features. So that's about on a very high level about resource syntax, which will provide the information about resource type, resource local name, and also meta argument, and also the resource arguments. Okay, in our next lecture we'll also see the resource behavior on a very high level and then move on with the practicals. So I'll see you in the next lecture. Until then, bye bye. Thank you.